welcome to the world of cinematics. Thanks for joining us today. We are going to be talking about Lord of the Rings once again. Today we are talking about our favorite scenes from the trilogy. Last week we talked about our favorite quotes. This is a little bit more broad, as we are talking about full scenes. And yeah, thank you for joining us, and let's get started. Robert, who goes first?
Looks like Robert's going first.
I'm going first. Yay!
I'm so happy about it.
Finally, the first to go! Yay! And we're going to start off with the start of the movie, and which would be Galadriel's prologue, where she read this real mix-up of history. I remember Jed and I, when we were talking about this, like, I don't know how they did it, but they threw in all this lore in just this small scene. How long is that scene? It's like, what, a few minutes?
4 or 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, five minutes of explaining lore of Lord of the Rings. That's a pretty difficult job, but they managed to write it in such a way where you have an understanding behind it all. So you got to start off with they're talking about the rings that were forged for the different leaders of different races, and how Sauron tricked them. He's like, oh yeah, there's one more ring, and here, I'll show you a picture. So you got this nice little ring right there. Let me switch it. And he starts trying to conquer everything, like a jerk. But the free peoples, they get together, they decide to resist him, and then you get probably the coolest major battles. That is only like a split second at the start of a movie. You got these cool elves. No, those elves are from Rivendell? No? They're from a bunch of different places, but like that armor specifically.
Of them, yeah.
Yeah, it's the last alliance of men and elves, as they call it.
Okay, now what is the origin of that armor? I gotta ask that, because
Like
that armor's cool.
Origins or in Middle Earth?
In Middle Earth.
I think those elves that are in camera right there are from Rivendell.
Yeah, I think that's what they're implying. And if you
I
can't
forgot
quite
to
see
switch it back.
But in the armor during that age, it's a little bit more green. In the later battles that you might see the elves in, they have kind of an auburn, kind of reddish tone to kind of signify them leaving Middle Earth, which isn't in the books, but that's something they decided to do to signify, mankind
He's getting ready to fall.
Yeah, exactly. Mankind's really going to be on its own.
Elves, my guys. Like, why can't they just speak normal tongue instead of in riddles? The red sun rises. Jeez. Anywho, yeah. So they kind of sum it up from what I have learned watching it again and again, is that they take a really good job at taking a lot of lore from the books and throwing it into a 5-minute segment with Galadriel's amazing voice. It's not Morgan Freeman, but we'll take it.
Like, on paper, it shouldn't work. It should just be a slog to get through. They make the exposition interesting, and then they make the history exciting.
Yeah, it's the brilliance of it is it's very much like how a high school anatomy class might teach anatomy versus college. You just break it down to the basics. We have bones, the structure. We have skin and flesh and organs. You don't have to know all the chemistry and all the things that go on. You just have to know that these are the components. In the case of the Lord of the Rings, there are a whole bunch of rings made, and there's one ring that controls them all, and we have to stop that guy because he's trying to take control of everybody. And that's basically all they had to do in Prologue, is really simplify and bring it down to the fundamentals and not get caught up in details.
It's very true, because I remember we had read The Hobbit as a family, so I didn't know all this previous stuff. But once they get down, past the battle, they explain this ring is evil, but it can also, be used for good, because it leads up to Bilbo finding the ring. And, if you've read The Hobbit, you know that it's actually a tool for good for a majority of that story. So it's very interesting how they're able to throw in all this history, but then also lead it up towards the current day for the story as well.
And it's good setup for how Boromir sees the ring. I mean, yeah, sure, it has the soul of the Dark Lord in it, but we can use this for good.
Yeah.
And I think part what made the way they wrote it so good is that the fact they followed one point, and that was the ring. It's like, okay, the whole basis of the story is to get rid of this one little golden object. So let's just show the brief history of it and pile it on.
We see the history, we see what it does to people, how it gives them power, but how the power will corrupt them inevitably. We see everything we need to know in terms of the setup of the story, the themes of the story, and the general direction of where it's going to go.
Mm-hmm. I got nothing else.
Alright.
So I believe next, Stefan.
Stefan.
Yep, next up is me. As I said in the previous podcast, which everyone should watch, so please like and subscribe. And also like and subscribe here as well if you like the content that you're listening to or watching or both. Is that The Fellowship of the Ring is my favorite of the trilogy, simply because it threw me for a loop when I watched it as a kid. As a kid, I was used to the first one being The Adventure Begins, the second one being The Downer, and the third one
The triumphant rising moment.
the Rising Moment, exactly, where all the pieces come together and all the questions are answered, so on and so forth. But the first film, as they chose to take parts of the second, chose to end with the Fellowship splitting off rather than them triumphing or succeeding. And it all begins when, in my opinion, it begins as soon as Boromir tries to take the ring from Frodo. Because then Frodo goes off on his own, and then Aragorn confronts him, and he decides that, it's better for Frodo to go, and that's what Frodo wants to do. And then they're attacked by Uruk-hai and all that, and then Boromir comes back. And that's actually one of my favorite parts of the film, is when he returns. Because often especially nowadays, we see heroes who get disillusioned or they do something bad and they feel bad and they decide, well, I'm just not going to do anything about it because I'll do more damage than good. And it's like, no, you get off your butt and you go out and you go and your duty is still to help people. You show up, go and help. If you want redemption, go get it. Don't wait for it to come to you. And Boromir does that, and he gives his life for his friends. But then Merry and Pippin are taken anyway. But the gesture is still appreciated.
It's the thought that counts.
Yeah, it's the thought that counts. But his redemption is really seen when he has that conversation with Aragorn, and he's like, I failed, I messed up. And it's like, no, you fought bravely, you have kept your honor. I'm like, that's exactly right. It's not in breaking your sword and exiling yourself or scrutinizing yourself. It's in taking it up when, for good, and when people need you, you be there for them. And he was there for them. He kept his honor. He did something he regretted and he felt bad, but he kept his honor because he was still willing to go back and help. And as bleak as things look, Frodo, he still remembers the words of Gandalf. He remembers, nobody chooses this, but if you have the time, and if you're still breathing, you can do something about it. And that's inspiring. And then with, after the death of Boromir and he's being able to lay at peace knowing that that Aragorn is going to be his king. He's going to finally act like that king. And that's really when the first seeds of that happen in the movie. So he's able to lie at peace. Frodo keeps pushing forward. And then Sam, he shows his loyalty. He shows who he is. I think at the end of the day, the splitting up the Fellowship shows who these guys are. Every single one of them. Shows that Sam's loyal. Shows that Frodo is determined. Shows that Aragorn he's still the leader. He's still meant to be king. It shows that Boromir, was a better man than he's given credit for. Shows that Merry and Pippin are better than they're given credit for, and extraordinarily brave, I have to point out. Shows that Legolas and Gimli, they can get over the differences and band together and go help people. And that's what it all boils down to, is it shows who they are, and at the end of the day, they all want to help people and be on the side of good. Even though they're all split off, it shows, this final trial in the film shows who they really are, and they're all good. And they're people we can root for.
Wow. Stefan could probably do another half hour on that one.
I love that film so much. So.
I mean, it's close to a perfect film, about as close as you can get. It's I forget the quote, but these are the times that try men's souls. These trying times. I mean, breaking of the fellowship is about as bad as anything that happens in the movies, and it's in that moment that each one of these characters reveals who they really are. Boromir, yes, he is those flaws, but he's also more than just those flaws. Merry and Pippin, yeah, they're kind of the comedic, moments of, we'll bring a bit of levity, but they're more than that. They're more than they're given credit for. Everyone shows what they're made of here.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah, and just, my final thought on that is that it really is the moment for me, even at the first time, that I realized that, sometimes you have to be not only determined, brave, all these things. Sometimes you just have to realize that, life has crappy moments, and you can let that bear you down, but it's worth climbing through all that stuff that would prevent you from succeeding, so that you can find that brighter day. And you can make that day brighter just because you inch yourself closer towards it. So that's all I have to say about it, but I think it's a very key scene for sure.
I agree. There's something I really like about it in the books that's never touched on in the movies as much. But Aragorn, after Boromir confesses,
I can't hear Brendan.
hello?
Oh, there you are. Hey, buddy. How's
Can
it
you hear
going? Yeah, I can hear you now. That was a great thought.
Where
Can you re-say it?
was the last thing you heard? Robert?
Good
Better
question.
start from the book.
It was basically at the
different.
beginning.
Yeah, it was basically
Okay,
because
so
I heard a
Something
word
you like
and then
better
it
in the
disappeared.
books.
Okay, so I'll just start over.
Thank you. Sorry.
So in the book, Aragorn finds out that Boromir tried to steal the ring from Frodo. This is great dishonor, it's exactly the opposite of what he was supposed to do. And after Boromir dies, he decides in his head that I'm not going to tell Legolas and Gimli. He kind of let him die with his honor, and that way the rest of the Fellowship that wouldn't know, so they wouldn't be focused on that. I just thought that was really cool of Aragorn. I was like, what a pal!
Yeah.
Like the Lord of the Rings. After I listened to those books, it really just got me as a bro book.
Yep.
All these bros, they're just the best friends in the world. Do anything for each other.
Yeah.
It's just really, really touching. It's way better than I just described it, but.
Amongst other things, the books and the movies very much are about the power of friendship, especially male friendship.
Yes.
Yep.
I agree.
There's that Lord of the Rings music video, just bros being bros.
Going off what Brendan was saying, it's this very Catholic idea that, you feel bad, you confess, and then that's between you and the priest. And that's the same case here. Boromir didn't have to confess. He could have just said, "Oh, they came out of nowhere,"
Which they did.
and it was chaotic. I don't remember the details, but his integrity was such that it demanded that he confess, and he did so, and the burden was off of him. Aragorn decided, you know what, he's gone. we don't have to ruin his reputation. So what's done was done, and it was forgiven. At least in Aragorn's eyes, being seen as a priest-like figure,
Yeah.
or a representative of God in this sense.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, Frodo told Faramir later about Boromir's mishaps.
Well,
but
that was Sam. But
Yeah.
oh,
Sam-
right. Sorry, I'm thinking about the books again.
Well, he is loyal
Yeah.
to Frodo, so
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
fault him for that.
Which, by the way, Frodo in the books is a lot smarter than Frodo
Oh.
in the movies.
Yeah, but
I
that's
have
next
to-
week's
one of the
episode.
things they did simplify was a lot of his character. They focused on, look, the point is the ring is dragging him down. We don't have, we're focusing on so many things. Let's focus his time on just that and how much it's harming him.
Yeah. Yep. It's just super hard.
Yeah.
Just his banter with Faramir in the books.
Mhm.
That's when I was like, oh my gosh, Frodo's smart.
Oh yeah, he's a
In the movies.
smart, capable guy.
He's not that smart in the movies. He's just kind of the poor kid that's getting dragged down by a ring.
You know,
Feel for him, but
It's funny you say that, Brendan, because I remember I was just listening to the first one, the first of the first book, where he ran into the elves with Sam and Merry and Pippin in the woods before they even got to the bridge. Do you know what part I'm talking about?
yeah.
Yeah, he meets them and he just starts talking about them with Elvish, and he's all learned in like Elvish lore and stuff. It's like
And
you don't
they're
see
all
that.
I was like, oh my gosh.
You don't see that at all in the movies, but it makes sense. But once again, stay tuned for next episode next week.
Yeah, next week we're talking about book to movie adaptations.
Oh.
Some of the differences and changes that were made. Things we like, things we didn't like, and why they had to be changed.
All right, I'll be ready for that.
Yeah.
Right?
I like
I know this is something you're passionate about.
Brandon's just giving you a sneak peek. So.
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
You think this is the end of the rant? There's more.
There's so much more.
They were all deceived. There was one more rant that was made.
Probably a rant for like every chapter in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. One book out
So
of 3.
is it my turn?
It is.
Indeed.
Yeah.
We
Side
are
note-
on the Battle of...
Real
Right
quick,
on.
so I apologize for any picture thing because I don't know exactly what we're going to be talking about within those scenes, so I just grabbed a bunch of random pictures for our viewers out there. So if they bring up the picture, I'll throw it up there. But if they don't,
There you go.
then you're not getting a picture, you're getting our ugly mugs.
Well, even if I'm talking about something completely different and you put a different picture up, it's still nice to look at.
Just throw it up there like, look at that, that looks great.
Yeah. Okay, so we were talking about the Battle of Pelennor Fields. I like this battle more than Battle of Helm's Deep. Ever since I was a kid, I learned later on that I feel like a majority of people like Helm's Deep, which is fair. It's a sweet battle. I feel like it's more grounded, and that's maybe why people like it more. But to me, Pelennor Fields is just like this grand scale, epic battle, and there's just so many variables that change the tide of the battle. Especially in the book, like the undead army doesn't come in and just wipe everything out at the end. That's a little different. So like everything that happens in that battle matters. Every trooper that shows up or doesn't show up, it matters. So, and there's just so many armies. I just think it's awesome with the Oliphaunts. From the time that the cloud comes over the Minas Tirith to the dead army appearing, it's just all awesome. So,
There's so many smaller moments within the battle that easily could have been a whole slot on this list, whether it's the Ride of the Rohirrim, the I Am No Man moment, or when you see the army of the Mumakil charging in. It's all incredible. Or, the death of Denethor, that takes place in it. Or Gandalf giving a speech to Pippin about the afterlife. It's so broad and has...
Well,
Lord of the Rings was... Oh, did you lose this again, Robert?
I keep losing your mics. I can still see you. You're nice and clear, but
Okay.
your mics are just gone.
I'll try and talk relatively slowly while being brief and succinct. My sister had never read or watched Lord of the Rings. She loves Harry Potter. And so I made a deal with her. I will watch every Harry Potter movie if you watch every Lord of the Rings movie with me. She didn't know that that was going to be about the same amount of time for each. But she ended up loving Lord of the Rings, and she was surprised by a great many things. Like, all of a sudden, the Witch King has Eowyn. She's about to die, and no man can slay him. And this army of the dead is coming. She's like, oh my gosh, the ghost people, they're going to come. They're going to save the day. They're going to save everyone. They're going to save Eowyn. And what happens? Mary stabs him in the back of the knee. She takes off her helmet and says, I am no man. It's a great... She's just like, her jaw drops. She's like, oh my gosh, that's the coolest thing ever. This battle is full of moments like that.
Absolutely. I remember watching it, I think it was Christmas, about that time, the first time I watched it, and I just remember seeing just the skill of it. I mean, when Brendan mentions the clouds, I would even argue when the green blast just shoots from Minas Morgul, and you're with Frodo, Sam, and Smeagol, and Gollum, just looking down as this marching out, which you did see in, for, Two Towers, but this one, the orcs they've never really seen before. Their armor is completely full. They've got these, later on we see the trolls with the drums, and then there's the Grond moments.
Yeah.
And then you think, oh, the Rohirrim's here, they've saved the day, but then that Mama kills. I remember thinking, yeah, they're winning, and then you just hear this screaming. You don't even see the Mama kills at first. You see Theoden's fear just come onto his face, and then you hear the horn, and you see the Mama kill, and then you see a whole line of Mama kills, and you're just like, oh, they're dead. There's no winning this. They're going to lose. But what does King Theoden do? He gets his men to line right back up and charging it. We call it a scene because it feels just like one continuous scene, if we're honest, because that's all it really is for a majority of the movie is the Battle of Pelennor Fields. And it's so exciting to watch. It's easily my favorite. I agree with Brendan. It's my favorite wartime during the trilogy. And I could go 3 hours talking about it, but I'm going to go ahead and let Stefan say anything.
Well, the thing with the Battle of Helm's Deep is it's very Aragorn-centric, and our characters, the rest of the characters aren't involved. And granted, I prefer, when that battle is actually there, I prefer it to the other storylines, and I always have. But the thing is, the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, it doesn't begin in the Pelennor Fields, in my opinion. It begins when they start fighting in Osgiliath, really. And that begins at the end of the Two Towers, where they're launching catapults, and you see the Nazgul there. So it's the only thing in Lord of the Rings that feels like the War of the Ring, if you will. Because the Battle of Helm's Deep is a skirmish between, it's more like the last stand at the Alamo, if they got reinforcements from literally the cavalry. And so it is good. Not knocking Battle of Helm's Deep, but this is the thing that feels like a war. It feels like it's prolonged, like it actually costs something. Battle of Helm's Deep, it's like, oh no, it's going to cost us old men and children.
But then it doesn't.
We never see we never see children specifically die, which is fine. We don't really see old men. We see a bunch of expendable elves taken out. Whereas you see the suffering from the people of Gondor, what it costs for them. You see what it costs for Rohan, they lose their king. And there's a cost for everything in this battle, and it's much larger in the big picture, and has much more weight to it. Battle of Helm's Deep is expertly constructed, but this, I feel like, gives all of our characters, again, a moment to show who they are and what are we going to do in the face of death and everything else. Whereas Helm's Deep, it's like, really the only who died is the elf captain.
Yeah.
Anyone know his name?
I don't know, Robert and I looked it up the other day and I've already forgotten.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we can say Theoden died.
Yeah.
We could say Faramir almost died. There was a cost to this.
And then you can also talk about victories. We mentioned Eowyn. There's Eomer taking out 2 Oliphants. We got Legolas taking out 1.
Which only counts as 1.
Which only counts as 1, as Gimli reminds us. But it's true. There's so many things just that make this, as we keep calling it, a scene, because that's what it feels like. It just, you don't want to, it's technically not.
I accidentally chose
Yeah.
the longest scene
Yeah.
in all the freaking movie.
Of all of the movie, any movie, let's be honest.
Yeah, we got time to
Except
fill.
for now it starts out in the second movie.
Yeah. And as Robert says, we got time to fill, so no problem there. But it's fantastic. It really. Oh, and we forgot to mention about the soldiers. They give them back their prisoners, and they shoot back the heads
Oh
of
yeah,
the prisoners.
the orc side of
Yeah.
things, and how it's just send forth all legions.
Such
Yeah.
a dark way to throw down
Is
the
it?
gauntlet.
What are the wizards? Well, I'll break him.
I will
Then-
break them.
I've heard all the speeches with the music. In Narnia, it's I have no need for prisoners. Kill them all. It's like,
Yeah.
ooh. And then in the second one, it's something like crush them all.
Yeah.
I've heard many of them, but move into the city, kill all in your path with Howard Shore's score,
Yeah.
and then just that running in and you got the Darth Maul orc binding him on the neck, the troll throwing people, the warg dragging a body.
And you
through
hear the fear in
streets,
Gandalf's voice as he says, "Fight, fight to the last man."
and the women and children all running away, and all the men laying down their lives to protect them.
And
It's
just
ugly.
just leading up to that, you think that it's so well done because in Battle of Helm's Deep, you feel the struggle and you feel like there's no way this ragtag team of people are gonna make it out until they do. But Minas Tirith, the Siege of Minas Tirith, is so particular because it gives you instances of actual hope.
Mhm.
They can't break down the gate. The gates are too strong. Nothing can breach it. And then he says Grond will breach it. And you're like, what the heck is a Grond? And you see this giant ram. Normally a ram's head, but it's a wolf's head.
And it's on fire.
Yeah, it's
Of
got
course.
fire on the inside. And you're like, what the heck? And then you have Gandalf saying, no matter what comes through that door, we're going to stand your ground. No, and then it's like 6 trolls, and you're like, well, no.
A good fight scene should have, like any story, a first act, a second act, and a third act with, many conflicts that need to be resolved within the realms of the fight, whether it's, someone has now brought out a knife, what do we do here? This whole battle is full of, alright, we're going to escalate, here's the result, but now new problem, how do we react? All these different things, so you can see a very clear first, second, third act. It's like a mini film story within this story that we're already watching.
And another thing, going back to the orcs, is they're highly competent.
Yes.
It's the first time we've seen orcs be, and I think, in my opinion, the last time we saw orcs be competent before, The Hobbit. And they're not competent in The Hobbit like they are in Return of the King. This force is so competent that it makes the more intimidating Uruk-hai or the more scary-looking or strong-looking orcs in The Hobbit, it makes them all look like a bunch of hopeless losers who are just constantly getting mowed down and outsmarted.
In defense of the Uruk-hai, they've been alive for like a month.
And I will give them that, but there's no excuse for the ones in The Hobbit.
Yeah.
If they were all goblins, I would have gotten it.
Yeah.
But they're not. They're all these massive uber orcs, and it's like, really? But these orcs at Minas Tirith, there's a reason Sauron, if it came down between him and Sauron would wipe him off the face of the earth because these orcs are competent. They have those towers, they have their catapults, they have the trolls, they have their resources, they have Grond, just everything. Whenever there's an obstacle placed before them, they don't just bash their way through it and have a troll with a cylinder block attached to his head ramming through the wall.
Mm-hmm.
No, they think their way through it, and they brought their resources, and they're smart about it, and they outwit the enemy.
They had the werewolves.
Oh
Those
my
kinds
word!
work.
No.
They didn't use it to get inside the mountain. Just the
You
outside.
can't go inside the mountain.
It's really funny because literally the only competent thing from the Hobbit as far as a military force goes was the flag setup. That was it.
That flag setup.
Yeah.
That flag setup was more competent than 2 armies of war.
Exactly.
There are enjoyable moments within the Battle of the Five Armies, but it's a great case to compare and contrast with the Battle of Pelennor feels. Both of them are basically a film within a film.
Yeah.
But I mean, here we are talking about the Battle of Pelennor Fields, and the only reason to talk about Battle of Five Armies is how it doesn't measure up, especially compared to the Battle of Pelennor Fields.
Well, and I would like to point this out because this is my biggest thing when it comes to like movies and like grounding themselves in realism.
Mm-hmm.
Is the fact that Pelennor Fields, that army was grounded in realism for a siege. Like that's how a siege is done in history. On a bigger scale.
And then that's what a cavalry charge is like.
Yeah.
That's what a cavalry charge with elephants is like.
Yes. Yes.
So they ground it in realism, which is super nice.
Yes. Absolutely. And like Stefan mentioned, Howard Shore's themes are perfect for each of the moments. And you feel so intimidated. Even before the Minas Morgul shoots up, they take a moment to just breathe and have Gandalf set the stage,
Oh yeah.
which really, really does it, because then you find out, oh, these guys that they wiped out with water courses, kind of a fairy magic thing, they're actually really bad dudes, and the worst
And they're not gone, they're coming.
yeah, and the worst of them is going to be leading this army.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
When they're shooting him up, like he talks about what's coming, he's like, there's going to be 100,000 orcs, and he's like, and well, we also got elephants coming. Well, we got the White Wizard.
we have to like this.
He's like, yeah, about that. So the power of that one guy who stabbed Frodo is even greater now that the forces of evil are expanding, and just them suiting him up and putting his gauntlets on and his little crown and everything. It's like, oh, he's not messing around this time. And it also goes to show the aerial battle, technically.
Yeah.
Not that anything was opposing them, but just Nazgul. As soon as they get an upper hand, they use the Nazgul to fly in and destroy the trebuchets. Or how do you say that?
Trebuchet.
Trebuchet. And just all these things. There's just so much more to it. And it's done with competence and without having to, sit there with chains on trolls and drive blind trolls
Yeah,
and have them whacking stuff.
It's with no legs.
And a Roman-style chariot with blades chopping things up.
Those were the dwarfs, weren't they?
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
the
those
dwarves.
were-
I thought that was kind of cool. The goats, those were kind of cool.
The dwarves had the cool stuff.
That's true.
Yeah, they had the content stuff.
About all the people.
Yeah.
But you think that with dwarves, elves, and men all against orcs and wargs, where are the wargs? That's a different issue.
Yeah.
You think it'd be more interesting or fun? But it's not nearly as fun as watching Lord of the Rings.
Few things are.
Few things.
Few things are. That certainly is. It's not only not as fun. I'd say it's kind of negative fun in a sense, because you watch it and you're like, oh yeah, man, they really dumbed this down a lot, which is a shame.
You know what could have ruined Helm's Deep?
What's that?
I don't know how recent this news was, but I saw that there was leaked photos recently of what's her name?
Arwen.
Arwen.
Oh yeah,
Helm's
that's
Deep.
been known for like 20 years.
I think that would have ruined it.
No,
Yeah.
that's true.
I don't know if
It would ruin their
it,
relationship.
but, I mean,
Because the whole point was they couldn't see each other.
Yeah.
they had like an hour extra in the Battle of Helm's Deep, but they're like, this is just so much. It's just stuff happening.
Yeah.
And Arwen being there, I mean, she could have had some cool action. I don't know, but it wouldn't have worked well with her relationship with Aragorn. It would have been, oh, here's another thing we can throw in for more stuff. And they trimmed it down, so not just to focus more on Aragorn, but so that it would have more, like a better pacing, better focus on it. And I don't know if they had to cut out an hour of Battle of Pelennor Fields, but
Yeah.
I doubt they had that much to cut out. But it kind of goes a ways to say how, all of that, all of the stuff in Battle of Pelennor Fields is perfectly structured so that you don't need to, okay, well, the elephants are a bit much, okay, let's get rid of those, let's focus on Theoden. No, we don't need to do that.
Right. And I think the example of Liv Tyler's Arwen showing up in Helm's Deep is exactly the kind of thing that's wrong with the Hobbit battles, because in the
Take shit out of
book,
it.
Bjorn takes out Bolg, who is the king at that point.
Yeah.
But in the movie, Legolas, who's never mentioned, shows up and does that. And that's kind of how I feel about Arwen showing up in that battle, or even the Tariel lady. It's all the same thing to me.
It's just like, well, we could have some, like, Legolas can run up a building as a spelling
We could have this really cool battle,
but it doesn't make sense within the logic of the scene, within the world, the character arcs.
I see Peter Jackson sitting there, and he's like, originally we had plans for Arwen to run up all these blocks to get to the Uruk-hai captain, and she was going to stab him straight in the head, and then he'd fall, and then all these rocks would... But it's too much Xena Warrior Princess. It's just...
Yeah, I'm glad they cut that out.
He definitely is. I will say he is a fantastic princess.
Yeah, there you go. Well, yeah.
I mean, his dad is the queen of the fairies.
The queen of the fairies.
He can wait.
And what's interesting is we told you this is favorite scenes. This is a trick. This is actually the episode for the Battle of Pelennor. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
It looks like we're going to have to do a full episode.
Battle of Pelennor Fields versus all the other battles.
Exactly.
This is every
battle ever. We'll see.
The title of the episode would be "Why This Is Better Than Everything."
Exactly. Why this is the best.
It's like the best clickbait I can do.
Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's better. Citizen Kane. It's like, what is this garbage?
What is this?
Rosebud, really?
The biggest action scene in Citizen Kane is him tearing a room apart.
Yeah, it's better than that mirror shot.
Yeah.
And everyone's always
Who
trying
needs
to
that
copy.
when you can have a line of elephants attacking you?
Yeah, I want a mirror shot with Olifants just walking and regretting their assault on
Yes.
Gondor.
Exactly.
I don't know what you're talking
You ever seen Citizen Kane?
about. No.
That's a good movie. That's my favorite movie.
Is that the Rosebud?
I'll tell you
movie?
what. We'll get him to watch Citizen Kane. We'll get you to watch Rocket Man.
Dude, Rocket Man, yes.
I really have wanted to see Jed react to Rocket Man.
Yes.
We're not talking about Elton John.
It's not the
Not the Elton John?
not the
Not the
Elton John.
Oh, okay.
No, this is a Disney movie that it's a
Talk about the
comedy.
Mars one, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a comedy that was made in like 1996 that nobody
no.
saw except
Nobody's
our
seen
family and Robert's family.
Yeah.
My
no.
dad showed me
It's-
that movie. I watched it again recently, actually. And dude, the
did you?
CGI in there, it makes it even funnier because it's outdated.
Yeah.
It's
So
it's so
it's very
ridiculous.
It
It's
wasn't
so
me,
funny.
it was the monkey.
We should do reaction to that when we
And
bring
the
reaction
reaction
to
to
Citizen
Citizen
Kane.
Kane.
That's not a
Yes.
bad idea. Hey, do we want to add that as a quick take video?
yeah, let's do that.
Brendan,
We
what do you
just-
think?
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get that.
That's a new
possibly
series
on-
coming out, by the
HBO,
way.
So,
Just a heads
HBO
up.
Max. Go ahead and watch it sometime.
Rocket Man's probably in that $2 bin at Walmart.
Plus.
Probably. You have to look for that one. That's one you have to look for.
Look
Yeah,
for,
it's probably
I
like
own
a
it.
year or something.
That's true. You do own it. We'll just need to.
And the
I
weather's
got it
getting
also.
better, so I can come down there sooner.
That's true. That's true. The weather has been significantly better.
Knock on wood.
Let's
Someone
move on.
knock on wood in the chat, please.
Battle of Pelennor Fields. Wonderful. We've
Wonderful.
said enough.
Thank you.
10 out of 10. All right.
Okay.
We've run out of time.
We've ran out of time as far as that. But the next one is the destruction of the ring. Now, once again, Return of the King. Sorry for those of the fans of the Two Towers. We did try to fight for the.
Come on, guys! I only won like one Oscar. So.
Yeah.
We had a lot of scenes on this list from Two Towers, and they were the last ones we cut. We fought for them hard.
Yeah, we fought for him, but we decided the first and third movie. So, the destruction of the ring. I remember hearing the title of the third film. It's called The Return of the King. In my young mind, I couldn't decide which king that was. So, watching this film, and they're doing the final battle at the Black Gates of Mordor, and you've got Howard Shore's music blasting. You have Frodo, he's about to throw the ring in, and Sam says, "What are you waiting for?" And then you hear the ring whispering to Frodo, and the music's getting softer, and then he turns around and says, "The ring is mine," and he tears it off the chain, and Sam says no, and he's crying. He does the creepy grin, puts it on, and then he screams, and all of us in the audience are all wanting to scream as well. It's just this energy of everybody's like,
And the music.
And the music.
It's called The End of All Things,
Yeah,
and boy, does it fit.
At the end of all things you see, Gandalf and all of them, they're all getting tired. And then on top of that, you've got a troll attacking Aragorn, and you don't know if he's going to make it. And then Gollum appears, and you're like, oh crap, what's going to happen? Is Frodo going to get out? Is the ring going to get out? And on top of that, you have Sauron. He's turned his attention. So the Nazgul are swooping down towards Mount Doom. And I'm just sitting at the edge of my seat. I don't think I blinked once. I was just like, oh, it's going to be the return of the king. No, it's not the king I wanted. And then, thankfully, as gross as it is, Gollum has bitten off Frodo's finger. He's got the ring. He's looking at it. He's jumping up for joy. And then Frodo, he gets that angry look. Despite bleeding, he grabs Gollum. They're wrestling for the ring. And then they both fall over. And you're just like, crap, did Frodo die? And then you see that Gollum has fallen. He's holding the ring. He's so happy. And then he melts. He just disintegrates.
But even in his last moments, his thought is, save the princess.
Yeah, save the ring. And you think the ring's just going to dissolve. Nope, it lands on a piece of ash, and you're like, oh, crap, and they're getting closer. And then it starts to warm up, and Sam says, don't let go, reach. When he does, it's at that exact moment, the music swells, the ring dissolves, and then Sauron just becomes obliterated. The music is blasting, just this joyful, triumphant sound. And then the shockwave of Sauron happens. You see Frodo and Sam struggling to get out, and they're all shouting for Frodo. And then the volcano erupts. And you're just like, oh, Frodo's they make dead. It? And everyone else thinks they're dead. You see them running, and they have a nice, peaceful moment where you finally see Frodo. He's just at peace. He feels resolved. You see poor Sam. He's thinking about Rosie Cotton, and then it fades to black, and you think, "Is that it?
Did they die?
Did they die? Where's the king? Where's the return?" And thankfully, as you've known, and hopefully you've seen, Gandalf comes with the eagles, picks them up, and takes them back to Minas Tirith, and then the return of the king happens. But I just remember that first time watching it on the big screen, theatrical version, and just all these emotions going through my mind. Just, is it going to work? Was their sacrifice worth it? Oh, betrayal. Oh, this, that. And it's just so well done, just the whole thing, because they don't give you really a moment to breathe, and you don't want to blink because you're afraid you're going to miss something important. It's a really well done scene.
I remember, watching these movies with my sister. After watching the first one, she said, "I know what's going to happen at the end. He's going to get to Mount Doom. He's going to hold the ring over the fire, over the lava. And he's going to look at it. He wants it, but then he's going to look away. He's going to drop it in." I'm just like, "Oh yeah, sure, okay, sure." We'll see. And then as he's at the edge, he's holding the ring over. And I say, "Hey, remember how you said he was going to hold the ring over? And how he's going to look at it real intensely? He wants it. Then he's going to look away and drop it." She says, "Yeah." He turns around. The ring is mine. And just the horror on her face. Because in a lesser story, that is what would have happened. It would be, "Oh, is he going to do it?" No, because it's okay.
No. What I'm hearing is if Disney had it.
Exactly. Exactly.
No, his sister would come out of nowhere and do it for him. She beats up the Witch King.
She would show me this ring, it belongs in the fire.
Éomer would come out and be like, "I am no man."
Tolkien being the religious man he was, he fought in World War I, and many people left, atheists. They said, "How could there be a God?" But he, being the religious man he was, left saying, all I know is that evil does exist. The devil does exist. And if the devil exists, so does God. And so in that moment when Frodo doesn't destroy the ring, it feels like a subversion, but, secretly, when that happens, we realize, oh, we were hoping for this the whole time. Because when he does this is the movie saying, yes, evil is real. Evil isn't just something to be trifled with. It is serious, and if you take it too long, bad things will happen. Thankfully the ring is destroyed, but if he were to just look at it, look away, throw it in, it has no meaning. It loses all of its weight. And so this was a way to resolve the story so that good wins, but evil is still something to be taken seriously.
Agreed. What comes to my mind is last week we talked a lot about the scene where Sam gives a speech, and I made no comment at the time. The reason for that is because I feel like that speech would have been better placed on the journey up Mount Doom. And that's my opinion, because let's be frank, the Two Towers has it the easiest on Frodo and Sam, if we're honest. It's the easiest.
I usually skip most of Frodo Sam's journey on the Two Towers.
And I'm betting the speech is the only thing you watch.
That's right. I said it.
The potato scene.
But that speech
Okay,
is probably,
I do watch a potato scene.
And you watch
Nah.
the Gollum schizo scene.
I do because it's well done. Sorry.
Right.
Go ahead, Stefan.
No, but the hard stuff it happens in, all of them, but it's the lightest load there. But the journey of getting the ring, from what is that tower called?
Which one?
Minas.
The one where Frodo's captured?
Is.
Oh, Kirith. Minas Morgul.
No, is it Kirithungul?
I think
It's
it's
Cirith, yeah.
Kirithungul.
Cirith
Minas
Ungol.
Morgul's
Yeah,
before.
Minas Morgul's the one. Okay, yeah, you're talking
Yeah,
about
so
that tower.
from that,
Ungol.
if he gave him that speech, after, he's been captured or whatever, and he thinks the ring is gone, gives him that speech and gives him the ring back. I don't know. It just would. You'd have to change up quite a bit.
Right. Two Towers is very much the middle chapter where it's just everyone keeps on going.
Yeah.
They have to worry about Saruman, but as far as the main plot, Frodo and Sam continue walking and they meet Gollum.
Right.
And they needed something big and emotional to end that movie with. And so if you're watching them all back to back, maybe it would have worked better in Return of the King at that moment, but waiting a year between them, it was a good way to end Two Towers.
Right. Sure.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Well, and I think it was a good transition into the next movie because it was a good, kind of how Fellowship transitioned to Two Towers.
Yes.
Because it was a good example of how, okay, this is what the plot is for the next movie. Just a heads up. Foreshadowing here.
Or even it could have been in the first film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
My point is, I personally feel it was misplaced because the suffering is at its lightest, but it's at its heaviest from the point where they get out of that tower, have the armor, ditch the armor, lose their water, are lying on the rocks, dodging the eye Sauron, carrying you up, getting attacked by Gollum, getting there, taking the ring for yourself, and all these things happening. And I guess my point is, this is what the moment we've all been waiting for. It's which is why it's so great, and everything Aaron described leading up to that moment it's great. And I feel like that speech could have been used somewhere in there a little bit, and that's me on a person. But aside from that, just going back to this scene, the music when Sauron's tower is collapsing, and then when his army kind of gets wiped out and sucked into the earth, it's like this is the fall of symbolically of the devil and his kingdom, his followers. And it's like, holy cow! It's an example of why it's worth it to be the best person that you can be, and to fight the evil, and to fight for good.
I like that. And since I always talk about the books, last week I talked about how the book of the Fellowship ended differently. The Two Towers actually ended with the whole Fellowship except Frodo and Sam. The Two
Except
Towers.
Frodo and Sam there, they went
Helm's
out.
Deep.
Yeah, Helm's Deep is roughly in the middle of the book.
Right.
It's also like, here's all of Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli. Then the second half is, here's Frodo and Sam.
Yeah, and the very, very end of the Gandalf and Aragorn and Legolas and all of them. Gandalf is taking Pippin to Minas Tirith.
Mhm.
That's the end of the second book for them. But for Frodo and Sam, they do go through some hard things in the second book.
Right.
At
But
the
it
very
ends with
end,
them climbing the stairs, Shelob, and then, oh, there's hope. Is Frodo lost?
actually, yeah, Frodo is taken, and Sam is running down the hallway where the orcs took him, and it's all dark, you can't see a thing. Then he runs into a door, and it's locked, and he's trying to bang on it, trying to break it open, but he can't, and the book ends. It's like, oh my gosh.
What
Yeah,
a
that is an
cliffhanger.
instance of, dark middle chapter of what are they going to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really well done.
Will Sam be able to break down the door in time? Find out next issue.
The Return of the King, which originally was going to be called War for the Ring.
I like that
War of
name
the
better.
Ring.
It was the publisher who insisted on changing it. So if you like that title better, it's because Tolkien thought of it. So there you go. I do think that the destruction of the ring, I mean, it's what you've been waiting for the whole time. You've learned from the prologue that it's evil. You see how it's evil. You see what evil entails just from looking for it, up to the point where it's slaughtering everybody, innocent or not, everybody. And to finally have that catharsis, because whether, each of us experience evil in our lives, whether it's, upfront and personal, or we see it on the news, or whatever it is, we all experience evil in some form. And so to have that, even in a fictional setting, destroyed, it's cathartic. You as the viewer, hopefully, are feeling that relief, that hope, that despite the evil that's out there, you can stave it off, and you can make a better today or tomorrow, and hopefully a brighter future in general. And that's one of the reasons why I think it hits us so much, is whether you're religious or not, whether you're spiritual, scientific, whatever it is, you want to believe that. You want to believe that evil can and is be able to be put off, even if you do make mistakes, as Jed mentioned. He does take the ring. He does make that mistake, and people generally, going with what Brendan was talking about from the books, people at first were writing to Tolkien saying, "Oh, Frodo's kind of worthless. He fails at the end," and he's like, he actually wrote back and said, "Actually, you're kind of missing the point. Anyone who would have taken the ring and had brought it to Mount Doom, everyone," he says in the story, "would have fallen. They would have failed.
No one would have lasted as long as he did."
And exactly. No one would have gone as far as he did.
Galadriel couldn't even do it.
And Galadriel,
She admitted that she would have fallen immediately.
Yeah.
And she would have been a very powerful, evil, corrupt elf.
Gandalf says how, oh, don't get me wrong, I'd love to take this, and I would take it for good, but terrible things would happen because of it.
Yeah, exactly. And Aragorn says the same thing, and he's arguably, one of the purest characters. When I say pure, of course, I'm not saying he hasn't killed. Obviously, he has. He's a warrior, but he doesn't do it for his own gain. He does it for the gain of others. And he even says, I can't take it either. And Gandalf, who we know is an awesome person, he can't touch it either. So the fact that he got as far as he did, and he was on the cliff basically, and he failed there, it's, according to Tolkien, very impressive. And it's true. And I mean, how, as good as we try to be, we each have our own cliffs, and usually most of the time we're going to fail. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. And that's really the takeaway from the destruction of the ring, I think, as a moral issue, is you should still try. And even if you accidentally, you accidentally find a way to defeat that evil, it's still better than not trying at all.
Yeah.
So
There's a reason it's called the Ring of Power. and why it's so hard to give up, and why the longer you have it, the more unlikely you are to yield it. And I just think that's interesting to note. And that's why in this country, I'm just grateful we have balances of checks and balances on power.
Yeah.
And that power is surrendered at a certain point. And things are going downhill when people refuse to surrender the power that they have. That they've been corrupted by the ring, so to speak.
So I'm
That's a
gonna,
good
I'm gonna have
point.
to jump in there. We only have a few minutes left, so we're gonna have to move on to the
All right.
next topic.
Well, we'll move on to the kind of the last scene of the whole series. We started with the first, and we're ending with the last. This is the Bray Havens. To give you a bit of background, on Tolkien, he believed that being a religious man, with the fall of Adam, the world became a fallen state. He believed that glory, that perfection that was in that paradise, will never be achieved again. Just immediately downhill. We'll go back up. Good things will happen. We'll never get to that same level. We're going to go fall and get worse again. We're going to fall worse than we ever did. We'll go back up, but every time we go back up, it's never as high as the previous time. Every time we fall, it's worse than the previous time. And that's going to continue going up and down, trending downwards, until the return of Christ. That is what he believed, and that leaked over into his storytelling. If you look at a lot of the history of Middle-earth, which we won't go into for time reasons here, it starts out great, and rise and fall, but every time it gets a little worse. And the Grey Havens is kind of the the pinnacle of that idea. The world has been saved. The hobbits go back to the Shire. It's not the same. It will never be the same. Even in the movies where there isn't the scouring of the Shire, you still see that their home isn't quite home anymore. And so you see, okay, we're sending the elves away, other than Legolas, but that's not important for now. The elves, this wonderful, pinnacle of what can be in Middle-earth, they're going forever. Bilbo is leaving because of all the weight and damages that he's had over the years because of the ring. He's going to leave. He's going to rest. And Frodo's leaving. Gandalf is leaving. All these people that we love, they're going to rest, but it can't be here. Only in, elf heaven, basically, another life, can we have that rest that we finally look for. Everyone else, they have to go back home. They're going to be sad that they're missing their friends. It's kind of a downer ending for a big epic trilogy like this. Yes, they win at the end, but you'd expect them and then they all lived happily ever after. Here it's a case of they all lived happily ever after, except they weren't as happy as before, and there was a toll. It's a bittersweet way of saying, look, we always need to fight against evil. There's going to be consequences, but even if it's not as good as before, go home to your family, spend time with them, appreciate those things so that they can continue to fight for good in the future.
Yeah, and for some people, it's even better than it ever could have been. Sam, in his case, he was able to make that connection and get married at the end, and I assume Merry and Pippin do as well.
And he became mayor.
Yeah, that's true. He does become mayor.
Oh, yeah. And so, obviously, there's going to be a toll on people, especially people who suffer through those things like having the symbol of power and corruption.
Like the wound from the Nazgul never heals.
Yeah. And Frodo and Bilbo both carried that for so long, and sometimes a rest just means something else for some people.
Yeah.
Maybe they wouldn't have been satisfied with getting married and having the normal life or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in their case, they're blessed with another option that I'm guessing made them happy.
Right. Otherwise, it's an eternity of being like butter spread over too much toast.
Yeah, scraped too thinly over a piece of toast. And, everyone is given their happy ending. Yeah, and people, they have the cost for that, but at the end of the day, everyone is as happy as they can be in the sphere.
Yeah,
in which
happy as they
place
can
themselves.
be.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, Frodo really didn't have a place in Hobbiton after he came home, especially in the books. I mean, Merry and Pippin came home taller, and they had armor from their respective kingdoms that they were out in.
Eredin or Gondor.
Mm-hmm. So they were kind of seen as the warriors, the cool guys, the guys that will lead them into battles. And then Sam, he became mayor. He got that recognition. But Frodo, he was kind of put off to the side, even though he was the most important of the four. You could argue.
Both when he left and in his adventures.
Mm-hmm. So he really didn't have a place in Hobbiton because he wasn't getting the respect he deserved. The hobbits didn't understand what he went through or what he did.
Yeah.
So I really like that he left. He deserves something better than that.
And this is probably going to get me canceled. There's a clip from Community where, Senior Chang yells out, "Gay!" And it's great fun to quote at the most inappropriate times. It speaks volumes that when Frodo's saying goodbye and he kisses Sam on the forehead, not once have I ever even been tempted to make that sort of joke.
No.
Because they've been through so much. This is a great, capstone on their friendship. Will they see each other again? Maybe. We can only hope. But all we know is that what they had was something special.
Brendan and I made the fatal error of poking fun at that scene one time. And Aaron and Mom, it turned out, were upset with us. Aaron was obviously more vocal about it. And we were just screwing around and enjoying each other's company. It wasn't taken that way. We shouldn't have been screwing around when other people are trying to enjoy this moment specifically. But it's kind of funny looking back, and it's like, Jed is spot on. You don't yell gay in the middle of this scene. You don't try to disrespect it. Especially if you've committed 3 days or whatever to watch this whole trilogy.
Yeah.
It's like, people get invested in it, and it's important to them. It's not an appropriate time to start making to Lord of the Rings references.
As much as we love those, there's a time and a place.
As hilarious as those things are, I do remember doing that. I did apologize later. Because I did get really upset, I won't lie. Because it's true, there's something, ethereal about it, is that, each of us have someone that we love that goes through difficult times. And despite them leaving, whether that's an actual death or they have to move away for a job, whatever it is, we want them to be happy, and we feel that in that scene. We feel this urgency. We're super sad that Gandalf's leaving, because we've known him since The Hobbit, if you've read the books or even the films. And then to have, on top of that, you learn Frodo's leaving, and the music is swelling. It's very peaceful. The landscape is beautiful, and just like Jed mentioned, there's the hugs, there's the kiss, and you just can't help but feel that, it can't be okay, it can't be alright. But then Frodo turns around and he gives a sincere smile, which, if you keep track of the films, he doesn't give that many smiles once he has the ring. And to see that sincerity as, they go off into the Bray Havens, you can't help but feel that it is going to be okay.
Yeah.
And, sorry, I'm getting a little teary-eyed just thinking about it, but
It's going to be okay.
it's going to be okay, exactly. It's going to be okay, and that's something we all want, and that's what we want our friends to experience. And that's why it's easily, as great as this stretch of the ring is, it's easily the best scene, for me at least, because what it's really about is this is what they fought for, and it's the peace that all of us want, and it's really well done.
Right. Of all Return of the King's many endings, they save the best for last.
Yes.
That is really good.
All right, we should close.
All right.
That was good. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Tune in next week when we talk about the conversion between book to movies for The Lord of the Rings. And like, comment, subscribe what your favorite scene was in all the movies. And keep tuned for our other stuff. Yeah, go watch it, what we do have. Anything else? We got anything else?
all I got.
Like, share, and subscribe, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell your friends. Is the only way that a podcast can grow and thrive is to recommend to your friends. If you like our material, go ahead and share it with others.
And we hope you like it. If you did like it, please share that with us. That way we get the feedback and know what we should make next time.
And if you didn't like it, direct all criticisms towards Robert and not me.
It was his idea.
And if you have suggestions about movies you would like us to talk about, or if you think there's a better format for us, leave a comment down below and we'll read through them.
Or, alternative, because I always forget to talk about this, go follow us on Twitter, @of Cinematics.
Yes.
And you can get more information there. So, yeah. All right, everybody. See you next week.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.